Finally, some clarity about the situation. When the Saudis refused to intervene in the $2 trillion global oil market last fall, it signaled the first time in almost 20 years that they took a pass on reversing a free fall in the price of oil by orchestrating production cutbacks among members of OPEC. It had been assumed that the kingdom was reacting to American efforts to extract their more costly shale oil and become more energy self-sufficient, while also forcing other high-cost suppliers out of the market. But the truth has been revealed to be somewhat simpler. Amid the Asian financial crisis in 1998, and again when the global economy melted down 10 years later, the Saudis intervened and exerted their influence among OPEC members to reverse a rout in global oil prices. This time, however, the Saudis convinced their OPEC counterparts they should maintain output to protect market share from rising supplies of US shale oil, which costs more to get out of the ground. By taking this position, the Saudis effectively resigned from their swing producer role, increasing or decreasing supply to balance the global oil market, and instead let the markets manage themselves. Saudi leaders have been worried for years that climate change and high crude prices would boost energy efficiency, encourage renewables, and accelerate a switch to alternative fuels such as natural gas, especially in the emerging markets that they count on heavily for growth. Emerging economies, some of their best customers, are increasingly getting more efficient and diversifying their energy sources, which has definitely impacted their high levels of oil consumption. Supply, though, was only half of the equation. While the new Saudi position was being trumpeted as a war on shale, falling prices also addressed an even deeper Saudi fear: declining long-term demand. Saudi officials were reportedly in a state of near panic last summer when they recognized how quickly demand growth in China was leveling off, in part because of persistently high crude prices. The era of frantic fixed asset investments in China was over, which translates into the end of rapid urbanization and the end of doing things in unbelievably energy-intensive ways. China has also been substituting lower-cost fuels, such as using natural gas instead of diesel, which has further decreased its dependency on Mideast oil. Before oil prices tanked last year, Saudi officials were bracing for global demand to level off as soon as 2025, but by letting prices fall, they may just have bought themselves another 5 years, according to the Bank of America Merrill Lynch commodity researchers. Crude prices above US $100 a barrel had been bringing a demand peak closer, and the past 4 years were a disaster for oil producers in terms of energy market share. Even Saudi Arabia, with more than $700 billion US in reserves, could suffer a financial strain if oil prices stayed low for several more years, as it gets almost half its GDP from oil exports. The Saudis never really believed in peak oil, which was a theory proposed by a faction of geologists and environmentalists that argued that global crude supplies were about to stop rising after a century and a half of gains and could no longer keep up with demand. In fact, the Saudis pump more oil today than they did a decade ago. If the growth in oil consumption flattens out too soon, the transition could be wrenching for Saudi Arabia. But while they don't know how low prices might go or when they will recover, they are more than willing to wait it out and see.